Hi, I'm Laurie from Madison Ave Bookkeeping. We specialize in solo private practice bookkeeping. All right, let's talk about the difference between an LLC and an S Corp. And you may already be one or the other, but I'm going to explain the differences now. An LLC is a very simple structure, and it is built to provide you liability protection. And that's basically where it stops, because you're basically, if you're a sole member LLC, it's considered a disregarded entity, and you're basically a sole proprietor. So you get protection from liability, and you can get a business bank account and a tax ID, but you cannot run payroll for yourself, and you have limited options in your retirement benefits. The second option is an S Corp, which is normally usually a one person owns an S Corp, sometimes two. It's not built for big corporations and so forth, because the net income funnels into any of the officers' tax returns. Okay, so let's say you want to be an S Corp. What are the benefits? You will be able to run payroll for yourself. So you will be able to take a W-2 wage and receive a W-2 at the end of the year. And if you run yourself payroll every 2 weeks or each month, you will also be paying your estimated taxes as you go. And you make sure you pay yourself a reasonable wage. The second benefit that I think is great is that if you pay yourself a certain wage, and then once you've hit that max, you can also take a distribution, which will not be taxed on Medicare and Social Security. So with the LLC, you're going to pay tax on every single dollar. The Medicare and Social Security, that changes with the S Corp. So you speak to your tax provider more about that. Another nice option is you have more options in the retirement world. So you can do a solo 401k, you could still do a SEP, and you have more options than if you were only a LLC. The biggest thing that I have seen is that my clients who receive that W-2 paycheck and are a corp. They just are taken more seriously. And because they have that W-2 and this corporate tax return, they seem to have a lot easier time getting financing, either personally or for their business, because they've treated this more as a business, right? So a personal tax return with a little schedule is very different than a corporate tax return. So that being said, there are more expenses. So you'll have to pay for a payroll service. Your tax preparation fee could be higher, but I would still recommend doing it. I think it's worth the money. I was a sole proprietor. I had a harder time getting my home loan, and I was told by the broker that they were taking my income and they were only counting half of it because I was self-employed. Now, had I had a W-2, they would still probably known that I owned the company, but I have found that when I go to buy a car or do anything now, I just give my W-2, I upload it to the bank if I'm going to buy a car, and there's no problem. And I don't have that whole piece of having to give my entire tax return to be considered for financing. Another big point I think we should all keep in mind, and I saw this with a lot of my LLCs during COVID. There was a thing called the Paycheck Protection Act, and this was when everybody had to go home and no one could work. And I had a lot of LCSWs, there were LLCs, there were sole members, and they had a hard time getting any of that money because they never had a paycheck and their company was not set up for that. So that was hopefully a 1 in 100 year or a never again event. But these are things that I saw a lot of my clients miss out on certain benefits because they weren't really operating in a full business structure. So that would be another reason for me to take the S Corp route. Now, I have another client that has been wanting to do this, and her CPA continues to kind of push back, and then she just doesn't do anything. But remember that maybe the CPA doesn't want things to get more complicated. I've heard a lot of advice sometimes from tax preparers to my clients that I don't think actually benefits the client so much as it just makes the life of the tax preparer easier. So just keep that in mind when you are asking for advice. Really, you want to do what is best for you. So I hope you found this helpful. I don't monetize my channel, so I'd really appreciate it if you could share this with anyone else you think would benefit from my videos. And also, if you could post any comments about videos you'd like me to make, that would be really helpful. All right, have a great day.